Marjane Satrapi is talking radioactive. Charlize Theron and Kiki Layne are kicking butt in Netflix's The Old Guard. Omar Epps is crazy, creepy, and fatal affair. And we say goodbye to one of our legendary civil rights icons, Representative John Lewis. Next on The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata.
You're tuned into The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. Carla shoots straight from the hip with what's hot and what's not in the box office, the latest film news, and talent from above and below the line. Are you ready? Then let's get into it with your girl right now. This is The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata.
Hey. Welcome back to The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. I'm your host, Carla Renata. And if this is your first time joining me, please subscribe right below. Click the subscribe button so that you can get notifications on this episode and any other content they may show up here. And give me a big old thumbs up to let me know that you were here. All right, so I got a jam-packed show for you guys today. And as usual, let's get into it. But before we do, let me pay homage to one of our last civil rights icons, Representative John Lewis and Reverend Cordell Tyndall C.T. Vivian. Both passed away this past Friday, and we mourn their major loss as this country is in the middle of growing protests and demands for racial equality. These same men fought on the battlefield in America decades ago. Lewis died at the age of 80 after a battle with pancreatic cancer, and Reverend Cordy Tyndall, CT as they like to call him, Vivian, died at the age of 95 of natural causes. The day they died was the day before the late Nelson Mandela, another renowned champion of racial equality. Speaking of Nelson Mandela, we also lost his daughter, Zinzi, who was a South African diplomat and poet, serving as her country's ambassador to Denmark at the time of her death. We also lost actresses Naya Rivera and Kelly Preston. Rivera had gone missing for nearly a week in Lake Peru here in Southern California, where she was out there swimming with her 4-year-old son. And Kelly Preston lost her 2-year battle with breast cancer. So let's say goodbye and rest in peace to those two women and all the other icons that we lost this week. Also, since I'm a big country music fan, I want to just say rest in peace and a big old salute to Charlie Daniels, who was the impetus behind the Charlie Daniels Band. Now, if you don't know who Charlie Daniels is, but you know country music, he was the driving force behind a hit song called The Devil Went Down to Georgia. And it went so that was the beginning of The Devil Went Down to Georgia. I can sing the whole song because I know it, but y'all didn't tune in to hear me sing The Devil Went Down to Georgia, so that's that. But I just want to say rest in peace to all of those that I just mentioned, sending a big old hug and light and love to all of their loved ones. So last week, I brought you all an interview with Dawn Porter, who is the director of Good Trouble, a documentary centered around Representative John Lewis. In case you missed that interview, here's a snippet of what Dawn said about that icon when we spoke. When was the first moment that you became aware of John Lewis?
I think like most people, I learned about him in school, in college. But I did a film called Gideon's Army about 3 young Black public defenders, and he agreed to speak to them. And they were just beyond excited. And he told a story which I hadn't really thought of and I hadn't heard, that it was the lawyers who got him out of jail and really kept him alive when he was protesting in the civil rights movement. And so he always will, help people who are lawyers who are working for justice. And I saw how much it meant to those young lawyers who were very unseen and unappreciated. So he's actually, the congressman's actually appeared in now 3 of my movies, only one of which is about him. And then I did a film about Bobby Kennedy. And I didn't know that John Lewis had volunteered for Bobby Kennedy's presidential campaign and had organized the speech in Indianapolis on the day that Dr. King was murdered. Mr. Lewis says, we can't rest. We can't assume that we don't have to be protective. We don't have to protect these rights. But he will also point out, there was an interracial movement, but it was also very much led by Black people, which is wonderful. But there is now, we are seeing, unlike where there were protests just in the South or just in certain places, we have now seen protests in all 50 states in America and around the world. So everything that Mr. Lewis and his compatriots were arguing for is resonating with many, many more people. And you're right, social media is such a powerful tool. So I would love to see, what a John Lewis and those activists, those young people, because they used media so successfully. When you look at how they trained and how they were calm, their appearance, they dressed nicely, they knew what message they were sending. We are people. We are proud people. We are peaceful, and people who attack us, they are the savages. I love what Bernard Lafayette says in this movie, one of Mr. Lewis's friends. He keeps saying, we kept giving them the opportunity to change. And I feel like that a lot when I see these, Karen this and Karen that. It's like, you have the opportunity to change. You know what's right. And we're going to keep calling you out until you change. Like, we're not going anywhere. We live here too. That flag is my flag and your flag. It is not a flag of hate. So, I think that people need to reclaim that flag and point out what it really stands for. I want to wave it proudly again.
All right. Let's get on with the show. So the next time you go to the doctor, get an x-ray, MRI, or CAT scan, you need to look up to the heavens and thank Madame Curie. Madame Curie became the first woman to win a Nobel Peace Prize along with her husband for their developmental work regarding radium. She would go on later to win a second Nobel Peace Prize, but that would be long before she would succumb to the prolonged exposure to radium in 1934. Now, director Marjane Satrapi is bringing Madame Curie's story to life on Amazon Studios in a film called Radioactive. We learned that Madame Curie, like most women, was a formidable adversary for her scientific colleagues, but she did so while giving birth, raising daughters, keeping house, taking care of her husband, the normal stuff that women do in everyday life. But after all, Madame Curie is not a superhuman. She is human. So we see her later on take up with a married man that she had worked alongside when her husband was alive, and see her get ridiculed and shamed for that, all while being a professor, one of the first women to do so, mind you, yet again, at the Sorbonne in Paris, France. Now, Radioactive is beautifully shot and exquisitely directed by Marjane Satrapi. She took time to chat with me about the film aesthetic, the music, and Madame Curie. So take a look and a listen to my interview with Marjane Satrapi, the director of Radioactive. Particular spots, the one in the park and by the lake. Those were the only ones where it was just full blown Technicolor, like bam color, and everything else was a little more muted. Was there a specific reasoning behind that?
Oh yes, these are the sweet moments of her life. So by the lake, is the love scene, between she and Pierre, and then this is the moment that she's with her sister, and they're actually outside. And for once, you don't have all the lab and all the smoke and all of this, so you're outside, and you need sometimes, this moment of breathing when everything is a little bit over beautiful. So yeah, it is made on purpose.
And in terms of the music, there were moments where it was very haunting, and then there were other moments where it was like, I don't know if you guys had this in France, but here in America, back in the day, when the television would go off, there would be like this sound from the TV when the signal would go off at the end of the day. So I was interested to know how you came to those music choices, because they were very interesting, and it made me pay attention to them because it was very unusual.
Thank you, Carlo. You're the first journalist who is asking that today. So,
yay!
And you're the number 23. So to tell you, it has been 22. So Thank you very much for asking that, because basically for this film, because as soon as it comes to period film, we want the violin and we want the classical music, etc., etc., where the story happens in the beginning of the 20th century, and it's not the Victorian time. It's a very exciting time where everything is moving, that everything that we use today, from the telephone to the gramophone to the plane to everything that we use, was actually, created at this time. And basically, the electronical music, the start of the electronical music is in 1920. So, it's much older than what people think. So for me, it was impossible to talk about these two modern people that changed completely the aspect of science, the whole, the aspect of the world in the 20th century, and put the classical music with violin in the background. I needed something modern, and we're talking a lot about electrons, so it had to be electronical music. So thank you for talking about it.
Oh yeah, that stood out to me very much so. Last but not least, I feel like there's a poetry in being rejected by the medical industry and the scientific industry and law and filmmaking in terms of women. And as a new member to the AMPAS in 2016, I just wanted to know your thoughts on the strength of women, when it comes to filmmaking, and how we're often seen as an addendum and not a very viable, powerful force in that field. And that goes for me being a critic and a female as well. But I just wanted to get your thoughts as a filmmaker.
Well, absolutely. The problem is that, is if we don't teach to our girls that actually they can become director and they can do this and they can do that, then they will do it. If we tell them, well, it's a hard work, and then you can't do it, then how can they do it? We have to show them the path, but we have to be factual feminists. We have to do, and by doing, we have to show them that it's doable. If I can do it, then they can do it. And that is very good that the things they're advancing. But again, we have 5,000 years of patriarchal culture. It will be difficult to erase it in 5 years only. We will need time, but we have to struggle, and we will be there very soon.
Thank you so much, Marjane. I was so excited to speak to you today. Congratulations on Radioactive and everything else in your career moving forward. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks again, Marjane. I enjoyed talking to you. You guys, check out Radioactive when it hits with a big old virtual party on July 24th. It's starring Rosamund Pike from Gone Girl and Anya Taylor-Joy from Emma and Sam Riley. So check that out, July 24th, this Friday, Amazon Studios. Now, I brought y'all numerous interviews from my roundtable discussions or participation from AAFCA, the African American Film Critics Association. We do a roundtable series, and this week is no different. So Nia Long is a legend in the Black community. She starred in Boys in the Hood, The Best Man, Soul Food, and so many more movies, child. The list could go on and on and on. But this is the first time she has taken on the role of executive producer in the romantic thriller Fatal Affair, starring Omar Epps and Stephen Bishop, and she's also starring in it. So I took some time to talk to these celebrities, and actually Omar Epps was one of the first celebrities I ever interviewed for this show when it was called Black Tomatoes. So it was really good to see him again, and he was he was in rare form as usual. I sat down and I talked to him and Stephen Bishop about taking on different roles, because we usually see them do romantic leads or, that strapping leading man kind of role, but we never see them, be in a film where they're being hunted or being the hunter. Now, Omar was being hunted in Traffic, but this time he's the hunter. And I don't think I've ever seen Stephen in a film where he was hunted, but he's also been the hunter. So we talked about that and how it felt to be working in this genre, not a genre that you are used to seeing either one of these men in. So take a look and a listen to my interview with Omar Epps and Stephen Bishop from Fatal Affair. Both of you have oftentimes played leading men in a lot of films, and not necessarily in thrillers, though. You know what I mean? You guys have been leading men, romantic leading men in other types of films. Do you enjoy doing the roles in the thrillers, or do you like being the romantic leads? And for Omar, I know in Traffic, you were the person being hunted, but this time you were the person doing the hunting. And which one do you enjoy the best?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Well, for me, that's why I mean, aside from the opportunity to work with Nia again and work with Steven, I jumped at it, because the character was just like I knew like my fan base would be like, I've never seen him, in a role like this. And then from a creative standpoint, it was super refreshing for me as an actor because playing a guy who's delusional. There's probably some mental health issues that went unchecked, and it gets dark. And so that was fun. And like my favorite thing to do when we were filming this was I would creep out the script supervisor. So whenever we did a take, I would look at her and she would be like, "That was creepy," and I was like, "All right, I nailed it." But I think we had fun, man. Seeing black and brown people in a film like this and it was so picturesque, right? It was beautiful scenery, and I love the fact that it's this husband, wife, they had a kid, they're successful, and we don't have to explain the why. It's just they're successful, and we're human, so we have human stories, and getting a chance to Netflix giving us a chance to get this out there, I think is important.
You have anything to add to that, Steven?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but I did a thriller called "Till Death Do Us Part"
Yes, I did.
a couple of years ago, and that was my one opportunity to play the psycho, guy that Omar gets to play right now. And for me, I really enjoyed it as well because it was a stretch. It was something where I could spread my wings as an actor and, like Omar said, give my fan base a view that they had not seen before. The only issue I had with it was, and I don't know if Omar experienced this or not, but because I got so deep into the character and allowing the demons that we all have to come to the surface and live at the surface for a number of weeks, where I was really on edge, it took me a little while to come out of that. It took me a good week and a half to 2 weeks to get away from that character and that edge and push those demons back down into the recesses of my psyche. You know what I mean? So as much as I liked it, I said I would never do it again, just because this guy was he was a wife beater. He was a little bit more domestic violence guy than what we're seeing. And actually, now that I think about it, Omar's character was that in his previous engagement as well. But I didn't like my character at all. And that was kind of interesting, having to go to work every day and play a character that I absolutely despised. That was weird, but yeah, it was fun to have the stretch. Omar, did it take you a while to come out of this character, or was it pretty easy?
It was. I've developed a process of decompression as an actor, which I think is important because it's the roles vary, but certainly when you play in the dark energy, it can weigh on you and those around you and your family and all of that. So everyone has a different process. This one, it was just like, all right, I have to really focus on decompression and get it back together. And besides that, my wife would just knock me upside the head back in reality. So I was like, all right.
Well, I enjoyed both of y'all in the film. I was screaming at the screen because I love thrillers. It's like my jam. So I was screaming at the screen and just having a really good time. So thank you for taking time to speak to us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Steven and Omar. I love y'all. That was a great interview. And I love how Steven kind of turned the tables and became the interviewer for a second. So again, it's part of the AAFCA Roundtable Series. Pop on over to the AAFCA YouTube channel to catch out the full AAFCA interview with all of the other journalists that were there. Now, y'all know I love me some Charlize Theron, honey. That is my girl. And I love me some Kiki Layne. So again, I did another AAFCA Roundtable Series that led me on a discussion to two of my favorite dolls in the biz, Miss Kiki and Miss Charlize. Now, it's no secret that Charlize Theron is a badass. I mean, did you see her in Mad Max and Atomic Blonde? I'm just saying. And she has ultimately remained committed to bringing women's stories to the small and the big screen. She did so with Tully, she did it with Bombshell, and Miss Kiki is proving to be a force in her own right, and a force to be reckoned with, rather, after her tender, groundbreaking performance in If Beale Street Could Talk, the film that eventually garnered Regina King with her first Oscar. Now, these two dolls together are in the #1 film on Netflix, this week's The Old Guard. Woo! Let's give them some praise. So I sat down and I chat with them about exactly that. And they actually brought up Regina King on their own. So interesting enough that I brought it up in my intro, but they bring it up in the course of my interview. So take a look and a listen to my interview, my AAFCA Roundtable interview with Miss Charlize Theron and Miss Kiki Layne on The Old Guard.
Hey, Charlize and Kiki, this is Carla Renata, the Curvy Film Critic. What's up, y'all?
What's up?
Okay, I just got to give you your flowers, Miss Charlize Theron, because you are one of the badass chicks in Hollywood that's doing it. You are doing it. The Revolution is televised, baby, on Netflix, and it is televised with The Old Guard with you and Miss Kiki. Okay, let me just say that. So now I'm gonna get to my. You're welcome. So I'm gonna get to my question. So both of you are very strong and confident women, but we both know that being in Hollywood, being strong and confident women has its challenges. So I'm wondering what that does to your psyche and how you both of you handle that in the process.
It's interesting for me because I'm just getting started, but I don't think it's by accident that my start has placed me, next to and being able to work and learn from, such strong, confident women like Charlize or Regina King or even Sherry on Coming to America, women who have been activists, for this time, but haven't, I don't know, they're still so very true to themselves and aren't afraid of saying what it is that they're committed to and remaining committed to that and not letting, all the Hollywood BS kind of come in and interfere and kind of take them off the track and the path that they've, been on since they first broke into the industry. And so I don't think it's by accident that I've been, able to work with these women who carry themselves in that way. I think it's just, I don't know, been inspiring for me to walk in that type of confidence and strength and to not allow myself to become afraid of it or intimidated by it just because other people may be.
Charlize?
Yeah, wow, that was so well put. Yeah, I mean, you are very, when I started, when I reflect back on, not to age myself, but 25 years plus, maybe over 60 movies, I am saddened by the fact that I've gotten to work so little with women. The one thing that it did do for me, though, is like what Kiki just said, it really reminds you so vividly of the women that you did get the chance to work with who inspired you and maybe encouraged you. And it's strange that she brings up Regina, because Regina and I did a movie when I was really, really young. I think it was my fourth movie. And I have vivid memories of Regina walking onto a set with this. She was just formidable. There was something about her that was so inspiring. I think of myself as somebody who was raised pretty much by a single mom, and my mom is a broad. She's not a pushover, and she raised me that way. She really raised me believing that I could do anything, and coming from where I came from, the things that she kind of instilled in me was so crazy when I think about it now. That I grew up in a tiny little farm in South Africa, and I had never traveled. I knew nothing about this industry. I didn't even know that was like a real job. I thought Tom Hanks was like a banker. I knew nothing about it. So when you think about my mom going, yeah, you should go try that, like, what the F were we thinking? But it's women like that who think outside of the box that have always been the ones that kind of made me push further. I remember vividly also working with Frances McDormand, and there's something about her that's just so, she lets you know with every inch of her body, don't fuck with me. And, you know, sometimes we need that. We need to be reminded of that, because there have definitely been times in my early career where I felt like it was upon me to make men feel better about themselves, or to figure that it was so hard to get a start in this business that maybe I should laugh louder at their jokes, because then, you know, maybe I'll be remembered in the audition. Things that we shouldn't even have to consider. I do think, though, that things are really changing, and it's so incredible to see it in this generation. I look at Kiki and I'm so enamored by how she carries herself. We had dinner one night in Morocco, and, you know, after a couple of glasses of wine, I was just like mother hen. I was like, listen to me, don't let anybody. And her attitude was just like, I would never. Like, she was just like, no, I wouldn't let somebody do that to me. And I was like, yay.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate y'all. And you are doing this, Charlize, and bringing women's stories to light and making sure that women are seen as strong and badass on film. So thank you both. Good luck with the film. I'm looking for the sequel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, y'all. So let me tell you about one other film. It's called Yes, God, Yes. It's produced by Vertical Entertainment, and it's written and directed by Karen Maine. Very much so in the vein of last year when I was raving and going off about Booksmart by Olivia Wilde. Well, this is dealing with the teenage angst from a completely different vantage point. Is dealing with the sexual discovery of a young 15-year-old girl named Alice. She's discovering what pleasuring herself means. She's discovering how pleasuring others, what that means. And it's comedic. It's comedic when you look at how seriously teenagers take those types of things at the time, and you realize later in life that it's really not that big of a deal. And then you get sent to a Jesus camp for it. Shenanigans ensue. So, and they have camp counselors that are just, they got shenanigans. They saying one thing, they saying something else. And it also kind of puts a spotlight on and gives you a little brief insight in a comedic way to the hypocrisy that surrounds the Catholic Church. Because there's a lot of hypocrisy there, as we've seen over the years when it comes to priests and, you know, marriages and divorce and all of that. So check it out. It drops online via Vertical Entertainment on July 24th. I enjoyed it. It took a minute for me to get into it because I don't know why it took a while for me to get into the part where I actually laughed, but there were a couple of times where I laughed out loud. And I particularly love the speech that Alice gives, who's played by Natalia Dyer. I love the speech that she gives at the end of the movie about being different and making mistakes and owning those mistakes and using those mistakes to your advantage to help you become a fully fledged, well-rounded individual in this merry-go-round that we call life. So again, check out Yes, God, Yes on July 24th when it drops online via Vertical Entertainment. So you guys, that brings me to the end of this episode of The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. I thank you guys so much for joining me. As usual, it's not lost on me that you take time out of your Sunday to come over here and join me at your dinner hour. I really wholeheartedly appreciate it. Again, if you're new, please subscribe to the channel and give me a big old thumbs up to let me know you are here. I'd like to thank Marjane Satrapi for giving me time to interview her in connection with her film Radioactive, which drops this week. I also want to give thanks to the AAFCA Roundtable Series for allowing me to sit in and interview Omar Epps, Stephen Bishop, Kiki Layne, and the formidable badass Miss Charlize Theron. You guys join me next week when I have some interviews, a big, nice, juicy interview with the filmmakers of Kerry Washington's new documentary, The Fight. And I also am going to have Titus Burgess here live and in living color because, you know, I had to take a minute to figure this thing out live since I'm not on Black Hollywood Live doing my show. So we over here trying to figure it out. But thanks so much again for joining me. And I will see you next week. Until the meantime, love, peace, and hair grease, and deuces, baby. To keep up with the Curvy Critic, like our page here, click that subscribe button, and click that bell for notifications. Love, peace, and hair grease, y'all.